I used to think the 3-act structure was strictly just for film school enthusiasts, but you ever find yourself working on an edit and you're wondering, like, how long should this section be? How much information do I need to give? And when should I move on to the next section? Get that wrong, your audience is going to lose attention and you won't get a repeat booking. So I've modified the 3-act structure specifically for us editors and how we can use it to make sure that our audience watches all the way through to the end and our client books us again and again. It's the same framework I used when I got my Emmy nomination, and if you skip this, you shall forever have boring edits. My name is Shiny, by the way. I'm an Emmy-nominated documentary and commercial editor who has spent the last 15 years working with clients like Vice, BBC, CNN, and Ogilvy. And it's my goal to help you overcome editing from the gut and consistently craft engaging edits using high-level storytelling and workflow techniques that premium clients will pay £300 to £500 per day for. This is essential knowledge. This is so relevant for every single edit, commercials, documentaries, branded content, you name it. And when you understand it, you'll see it everywhere. Structure like this is only one part of the massive storytelling picture that premium clients who charge £300 to £500 per day adhere to. So if you want help to see where you're missing in your storytelling and craft, then make sure to head to unsplice.com/help to see how I can help you. And I'll help you uncover exactly the mistakes that you're making and how you can get to the next stage in your career. So why do most documentaries lose viewers in the first quarter of the film? Well, typically what most editors do is they'll put all the information in right at the beginning that they think is really important for the rest of the story. It's kind of like if you're going to a party, imagine you're at a party, somebody just walks up to you and starts listing their qualifications. Like, hi, I've got a doctorate in this, I've got a PhD in this, I've got 4 A levels. You're just gonna glaze over. Okay, cool. And then slowly sidestep away to the bar. But what if that same person came up to you and said, my grandmother raised me and she's on her deathbed and I promised her I'd get a doctorate. And then they say, and I have a doctorate and 4 A levels and a master's. All of a sudden now you're invested, you've got context. And so now you're cheering them on. It's a completely different feeling. And all it is just one line of context. So when we focus in Act 1, we need to create some kind of emotional connection, give us context. So what exactly should be in Act 1? First of all, we want to make sure we hit the 5 W's. That's who, what, where, when, and why. You want to make sure you hit 4 out of 5 of those. Sometimes we don't need to know when is happening or where something is happening. The second thing that needs to happen in Act 1 is the mission statement. And that's obviously going to come right at the end of Act 1, just before they go on that mission. And that could be anything from, I want to get my farmland back, or something really, really simple, like I want to make this cake. And then for the audience to actually care why someone's going to make that cake, we need to make sure that we create some kind of connection. If the audience doesn't care why that person is making a cake, they're not going to watch them make the cake. So a really good framework that you can do when you're trying to understand the motive behind the mission is to ask why 5 times. So 5 different levels of asking why. And by the time you get to the 5th why, you've got to the very, very emotional core of why somebody is making a cake. And then you need to find that footage. The 5th level of why is going to be the hardest footage to find. So if that does not exist, then go up a level to 4th, and then you should have 3rd level of why. If you say, I want to make this cake because I'm raising funds for the local church, and the church means a lot to me because they looked after my father as he was going through cancer. All of a sudden, you care why that cake is being made, and you want to make sure that that's the best cake they've ever made, and that everybody who tastes it thinks it's incredible, and then they get tons and tons of money for that cake. And that's just 2 lines of context. So that, in a nutshell, is Act 1. That should be 25% of your film. Act 2 is the bulk of the film. That's the next 50% of your film. And this is where most editors fuck up. This is where you need to keep the attention all the way through, and you need to keep the audience guessing. It shouldn't be an easy ride for whoever's journey we're going on. This is where we're going to outline challenges that they face, new things that they discover along the way, things that are new to the audience and unpredictable. You want to surprise the audience. And this is typically where most editors would just put stuff in because it looks nice or it's interesting, but it doesn't actually push the story forward. Let's go back to the party example. If this person walked up to you and said, I want to get a doctorate because I promised my grandma who raised me that I would get one. And then they said, and I got the doctorate. Up until they said, and I got the doctorate, you're kind of wondering, oh, did they get the doctorate? Then they said, yeah, I got it. And you're kind of like, oh, that was underwhelming actually, because you've given away too much too soon. There was no journey. The best storytellers take us on a journey. We're not creating a news piece where we're just delivering information after information after information. We're telling stories. Imagine that same person at the party came up to you and said, I was raised by my grandmother and I told her I'd become a doctorate, but now she's on her deathbed. And they left it there. And you're kind of thinking, oh, so how's it going? You're going to have some follow-up questions. How's it going? That's a natural progression that you want to hear. So Act two is all about that. How's it going? And so what you really want to hear from them are all of the challenges, and that's how you're going to tell a great story. All of the challenges that they faced. Not yet. We're not talking about the result. Did they get the doctorate? No, we don't want to say. We want to save that till Act 3, which is when we conclude everything. Imagine if they said, "Oh, well, I failed my first thesis argument, and the advisor said I'm probably not cut out to achieve a doctorate." I was distraught. And I called up my grandmother in tears. And she said something to me. She said, these fields aren't going to harvest themselves. Now, all of a sudden, you're kind of leaning in. You're going, okay, so tell me what happens next. Did you get it? Did you get it? Did you get the doctorate? That's one line, another one line. Even if you know they achieved their doctorate, you want to know, how did you come back from that? So with Act 2, every single piece of dialogue should challenge or advance the story. Now, Act 3 is the last 25% of the film. And if you did everything right before that, everybody's holding on thinking, did they succeed? And in the last 25%, you want to answer all of the questions, the open questions that have been left unanswered from the rest of the film, and make sure you tie up all the loose ends. Did they achieve the mission? What's the results? It's also the perfect time to add any context about the future and what's future facing. If the guy at the party said to us, and then I got my doctorate. Cool. Should we get another drink? You're going to kind of feel a bit like, oh, that was, okay. Yeah, fine. Let's get a drink. But you kind of feel like that was a great story. And then it just dropped right at the end. If the person at the party told you that they achieved their doctorate, what's your next immediate question going to be? Well, all of the context that came before that was all about grandma. He was doing it for his grandma. And so you want to know, you did it. What did grandma think? That's your immediate next question. So let's give them that. Act 3 is not just, this happened, cool. It's looking to the future. It's like answering all those questions and also looking back to that emotional journey that they've been on. What if the person at the party said, I got my doctorate and I took my diploma to the hospital, to my grandma in her bed, and she held it. She just stared at it for 20 minutes straight. My heart broke when she started rubbing her finger over the signature of the certificate. That is a powerful story now, and it's a little bit of context, and it's all about coming back to that emotional journey and not just, we did it, hooray. Well, we did it. What are the repercussions? Are the repercussions that happen in the future? What are the repercussions of the mission right now? And once you do that, something changes. It's not just all of a sudden a transactional mission. You're moved. There's an emotional connection there. And you feel like you went on an emotional journey as well. Act 3 works well when there's resolution and legacy. And that's the way I like to look at it. what happens after this video finishes is as important as what's come before up until this point. Another typical way that the 3-act structure is used in documentaries and scripted is past, present, future. This happened in the past, therefore I'm doing this right now to improve my current situation, which means in the future this will be possible. But of course, every video, every film that we make is completely different, and the story for one might not be replicable across every single one. And if you want help with your storytelling, then I would love to help you increase your day rate. Head to unsplice.com/help. Book a call. We'll talk about exactly where you are right now and where you'd like to be. We can formulate a plan for how you can get there.